Next guest has a unique perspective on politics. Mark Grisanti is a Republican senator who was once a Democrat, and he represents one of the most heavily Democratic state Senate districts in New York, which is practically on the border with New York's 26th congressional district, where, of course, the nation is watching this special election with rapt attention. The senator is joining me now to talk more about this race a little bit, and also an unusual bill that he is sponsoring, at least unusual in some people's eyes for a Republican. Senator, thanks very much for your time.
Good evening, Liz. How are you?
I am well, thanks. Thanks for making time for us.
No problem.
So the bill in question is actually a bit of a decriminalization of marijuana bill. And I think that that is surprising in some people's eyes because it's not something that you would expect for a Republican. So it actually reduces the penalties of smoking marijuana in public. So what moved you to do this?
Well, Liz, as I said all along, I don't really look at what's at the end of somebody's name, whether it's a D, an R, an I, or a C. Basically, my focus here is on looking at a bill and see if something needs to be changed. This bill that was initially put in back in the early 70s, in my opinion, has two classifications that a police officer can use in charging somebody with marijuana in public view.
Right.
And, what I've seen, not only on the economic side and how much it's costing New York City, at roughly $75 million last year, and roughly 2,000 plus per arrest in order to continue on with prosecution of that type of crime, I see a huge racial disparity as to how that particular law is actually being implemented. In particular, it shows in Buffalo, New York as well, on the statistics that I have, and other major cities that are across the state of ours. And when you look at it, marijuana in public view, if you had something in your pocket, a marijuana cigarette, and you were being searched by a police officer, or they said to empty your pockets, and this marijuana cigarette would fall out, normally that would be a violation, but because it fell out of your pocket in public view, it then becomes a B misdemeanor.
So, Senator, just to be clear, you do not believe in the full legalization of pot, do you?
No, not at all. It still has marijuana as being illegal. There's still a 25-gram minimum that's with regards to, none of that has changed with regards to this particular legislation. All it's doing is having uniformity that types of crime of marijuana in public view are not B misdemeanors or violations, and it also releases a segmentation put on people that are charged with that B misdemeanor rather than a violation. There's other ways that you can go about in handling this type of case, and I've seen it in Buffalo in the city courts. As you know, I'm a criminal defense attorney.
Right.
I've seen it been taken care of in a violation measure through drug counseling or drug court programs, rather than stigmatizing somebody with a B misdemeanor. And also the big factor, though, is the racial disparity that they have in how somebody is charged with a crime. Liz, more whites are charged with smoking marijuana in public view, but yet less whites are charged with the B misdemeanor than African Americans and Latinos.
So, Senator, as I mentioned, you won a big upset. You actually ousted a guy named Antoine Thompson, who was a Democrat. And when it comes to policy, you've been pretty pragmatic. And there's also another bill that's coming down the pike, we think, at some point, and it's gay marriage. Last I checked, on May 9th, you were still looking at the information about how you would vote on that. Do you have any more updates for us? Have you spoken to the governor about it?
Liz, I have had a tremendous amount of meetings with groups from both sides of the issue on same-sex marriage, and I just welcome all the input that they have given me, especially the meetings that I've had in Buffalo, New York, where they provided me with independent commission studies on the difference between civil unions that was given in New Jersey and the term marriage. And my position really hasn't changed. What I have said is I am on the fence in the sense that I want everyone to have the 1,324 rights that I have with my wife. I want them to be able to have those rights. My only issue is, and this has nothing to do with anything relating to whether I'm going to lose any sort of line in any upcoming future elections or being shunned by any sort of party lines for doing something like that. As I said before, none of that matters to me. What it is for me is something personal inside an issue regarding the term marriage. And people say, well, that's a political position, and it's not, because it's something I've been consistent on all along. And some of the groups that I've met with, in particular in Buffalo, said that we don't really need the term marriage. And I said, we'll come up with a different term, but then after looking at their commission study, I wouldn't use civil unions either.
Wait, have you spoken to the governor about this at all?
I was at the governor's house last week. Commissioner Joe Martens was there just as a meet and greet as chairman of the Environmental Conservation Committee.
Oh, right.
Or as a commissioner. I'm chairman in the Senate. So just saying hello to the commissioner. The governor pulled me aside. We were talking about some issues on UB 2020. He was talking about his tour that was coming up in Buffalo, and I told him that on a property tax cap, the Senate has already passed that. On ethics reform, that's something that we are looking into, and there's a commission in our Senate conference that is looking into ways on the ethic reform. And I told him on the issue of same-sex marriage, I told him where I stood, and he seemed to understand, knowing the background that I have and coming from a Catholic family.
Senator, just to be clear, I'm not clear where you stand. You still are on the fence exactly?
No, what I told the different groups after I met with them and talked to them on both sides, that if there were to come up to a vote today, I would vote no because of the term marriage being in there.
I see.
Other groups had said to me that, you know, we don't really care about the term marriage as long as we have the 1,324 rights that we're not allowed to have for married couples. And I agree that they should have those rights.
Senator, should the bill come to the floor, in your opinion?
You know, I think what Governor Cuomo had stated is that he does not want a bill to come to the floor that he doesn't know if it's going to pass or not without clarity. And I'm the same way. I don't just have something come out of a committee to bring to a floor that I know it's going to lose. Nobody likes to lose on a particular vote. But, you know, if I have no problem with the bill coming to the floor, but I think that they don't want to have same missteps as it happened a couple of years ago.
And before I let you go, I want to get your opinion. I know this is not your district, but this New York 26th congressional race, I mean, just today, a pretty reputed outfit out of D.C., the Rothenberg Report, says moving this race into a tilts Democratic column, that Kathy Hochul has a possible upset. I mean, what is going on out there in Western New York? You've got the temperature of your constituents, and you know the region. What's happening out there?
Well, you know, I think that in Western New York, you know, people are, at this point, I think, are just fed up with any sort of dysfunction that seems to lay out in politics. But in this particular race, I really haven't followed it closely. It is not in my district. You have three contenders in Jack Davis, Kathy Hochul, and you also have the Republican Jane Corwin. And there was some press that was going back and forth and some situation that came about that may be sliding the voter scale back and forth between, it's been close between Jane Corwin and Kathy Hochul, and I think it's the way that each side presents their campaign in the future, in the next few days to come or next couple of weeks to come with regards to that particular seat.
Well, it's possible. I mean, you're a Republican who won in a Democratic district, although you used to be a Democrat, so you just never know, because it seems that people out there in Western New York are pretty independently minded. We're unfortunately out of time. I want to thank you for making time for us, Senator Grisanti. It's good to see you.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a good evening.